I have spent 23 years trying to protect my daughter from bad teachers, from drunk drivers, from strangers, from broken hearts. I always believed I knew what danger looked like. I was wrong, because the thing that almost destroyed my daughter never broke into our house. She invited it inside herself. It lived in her phone. And by the time I realized what it had done, she was waking us up every morning with the kind of screams you only hear outside hospital rooms. For 3 straight days, my wife and I stood outside Lily's bedroom door, listening to our 20-year-old daughter cry as if someone she loved had died. The terrifying part? Nobody had. I knocked softly. "Lily?" No answer. Only sobbing. Not ordinary crying, the kind that leaves a person struggling to breathe. Emily looked at me with panic in her eyes. Should we call someone? I don't know. That was the first time I'd ever admitted those words as a father. I don't know. When Lily finally unlocked the door, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. She looked exhausted. Mascara covered half her face. Her hair hadn't been brushed. Empty water bottles stood beside the bed. The curtains were still closed even though it was nearly noon. And sitting beside her pillow was her phone, still playing videos. Private jets, diamond necklaces, luxury villas in Monaco. A woman laughing while climbing into a helicopter. Another smiling as her boyfriend handed her the keys to a Ferrari. Another pointing at a 10-carat engagement ring while cheerful music played in the background. Lily wasn't even watching anymore. The videos simply continued playing, one after another, as if they had become the soundtrack to her misery. I sat carefully on the edge of her bed. "Sweetheart, what happened?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. "I've failed." I assumed she meant university. She had struggled during the semester. Maybe she'd failed an exam. Maybe she'd lost a scholarship. Maybe I'll never have the life I was supposed to have. I frowned. What life? She closed her eyes. The one where I marry someone who can give me everything. For a moment, I genuinely thought she was joking. Then I realized she wasn't. She looked at me with complete sincerity. "Dad, what if I never marry a billionaire?" Silence. Absolute silence. Emily looked at me. I looked back at her. Neither of us knew how to answer. Not because billionaires are rare, but because neither of us understood why our brilliant, kind, talented daughter suddenly believed her entire future depended on marrying one. That morning, I thought my job was to convince Lily that she didn't need a billionaire to be happy. I had no idea that over the previous 12 months, someone had slowly convinced her that without one, she wasn't worth loving at all. If you'd asked me a year earlier whether my daughter cared about money, I would have laughed. Not because she disliked nice things. Everyone likes nice things. But Lily had always dreamed about creating something of her own. When she was 16, she wrote a fantasy novel after school simply because she loved telling stories. It wasn't perfect, but it sold a few thousand copies online. I still remember how excited she was when she received her very first payment. It wasn't much, just enough to buy herself a second-hand camera she'd wanted for months. Most teenagers would have spent that money on clothes. Lily spent it chasing another dream. She wanted to become a writer. Then she started university. During the first semester, she was exactly the same girl we'd always known. She called every Sunday, complained about difficult professors, sent us pictures of coffee shops where she studied, asked me to proofread her essays. Sometimes she'd even call just to tell us about a funny conversation she'd overheard on campus. She was happy, not because life was perfect, because she had purpose. Then, almost overnight, something changed. At first, the changes were so small they barely registered. She stopped talking about books. Instead, she talked about brands. She stopped asking Emily for recipes. Instead, she asked where wealthy people usually spent their weekends. She no longer admired women who built successful careers. She admired women who married successful men. I told myself it was just another internet trend. Every generation has them. Mine wanted to become rock stars. Others wanted to become movie actors. Apparently, this generation wanted to become luxury influencers. I wasn't worried. Not yet. Then one evening she came home wearing a bracelet I'd never seen before. It sparkled under the kitchen lights. Emily smiled. "That's beautiful." "Thank you." "Did you buy it?" Lily hesitated. "It was a gift." "From who?" "A friend." "What friend?" She looked down at her plate. "You don't know him." Emily glanced at me. Neither of us pushed any further. Looking back, we should have, because that little hesitation was the first lie she'd ever told us. Not the biggest, just the first. Over the next few months, more expensive things began appearing. A silk scarf, designer perfume, a leather handbag that cost more than my first monthly paycheck after college. Every time we asked, the answers were always the same. It was discounted. I won it. A friend gave it to me. I got lucky. Individually, none of those explanations sounded impossible. Together, they formed a pattern. One Friday evening, Emily walked into my home office carrying Lily's Instagram profile on her tablet. "I think you should see this." I expected vacation photos, university friends, coffee, sunsets. Instead, every picture looked like an advertisement. Luxury hotels, rooftop restaurants, champagne glasses, perfect makeup, perfect lighting, perfect smiles. It didn't even look like our daughter anymore. It looked like someone trying desperately to become another person. Emily quietly scrolled through the comments. "Manifesting this life. Queen. Teach us your secrets. You're living every girl's dream." I noticed something else. There wasn't a single photo with her old university friends. Not one. No study groups, no birthdays, no library, no family, no cousins, no childhood friends. She had erased almost everyone who had known her before. The only people left were strangers telling her she looked expensive. That frightened me more than anything else, because strangers are very good at applauding a version of you they never have to live with. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Emily asked me a question I couldn't answer. When was the last time she laughed? Not smiled for a photo, not laughed politely, really laughed. I searched my memory. Christmas? No. Her birthday? Maybe. Then I realized I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, our daughter had stopped chasing happiness. She had started chasing appearances instead, and appearances are hungry. No matter how much you feed them, they always ask for more. At the time, I still believed this was just a phase. I had no idea that someone was making thousands of dollars by carefully teaching young women exactly how to think like this. And my daughter had become one of their best students. The first real warning didn't come from Lily. It came from my colleague, David. He called me late on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded awkward. "Hey, Michael. Got a minute?" Of course. I wasn't sure whether I should tell you this. The moment someone starts a conversation like that, your mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusions. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, well, sort of." He laughed nervously. "I think your daughter may have messaged me by mistake." I frowned. "Lily?" "Yeah. She found me on LinkedIn." That alone wasn't strange. LinkedIn is public. Students connect with professionals all the time. "What did she want?" David hesitated. "I honestly don't know. She said she'd love to learn from successful entrepreneurs." "Okay." Then she asked if I'd ever mentor someone over dinner. I stayed quiet. He continued. Then she complimented my watch. Another pause. And finally, she asked whether I usually traveled alone. I closed my eyes. My face felt hot. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I just thought you'd want to know. I appreciate it." Before hanging up, David added one sentence that stayed with me for weeks. "It didn't sound like your daughter." After work, I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes before driving home. I kept asking myself the same question. How do you confront your adult daughter without making her feel attacked? That evening, I waited until after dinner. "Lily, can we talk?" She looked up from her phone. "Sure." I sat across from her. "Did you message David Harper?" Her expression froze for less than a second. Then she smiled. "Oh, that. So you did. It wasn't a big deal. What were you hoping would happen?" "I wanted career advice." I nodded. "Career advice. Over dinner?" She sighed dramatically. "Dad, that's how networking works." "Is it?" "Yes." I leaned forward. "So why ask about his watch?" She shrugged. "People like compliments." "And asking if he usually travels alone?" She rolled her eyes. "You make everything weird." "No, I'm trying to understand." "There isn't anything to understand. He owns 3 companies. He knows successful people. I wanted connections." Connections. That word again. It sounded reasonable, almost convincing. If I hadn't seen the messages myself, I might have believed her. Instead, I asked quietly, "If David had invited you to dinner, would you have gone?" She answered immediately. "Of course." "What if he was married?" Another pause. "I didn't know he was." "What if he was 50? "So?" "Lily, successful people are usually older." She said it so casually, like it was obvious, like age no longer mattered. Only status, only wealth, only opportunity. The conversation ended there, not because either of us was satisfied, because I realized logic wasn't reaching her anymore. Something much stronger had taken its place, a belief. And beliefs don't disappear because someone presents better arguments. Later that night, Emily found me washing the same coffee mug for almost 5 minutes. "You okay?" "No." I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she quietly asked, "What if this isn't about money at all?" "What do you mean?" "What if she's trying to prove something?" I looked at her. Emily continued, "People usually become obsessed with something because they think it will fix something else." I didn't answer, because deep down, I knew she was probably right. The question was, what exactly was Lily trying to fix? A week later, I accidentally found the answer, and I almost wished I hadn't, because the truth wasn't hidden in her messages. It wasn't hidden in her photos. It wasn't even hidden in her phone. It was hidden inside a notebook she never intended anyone else to read. I found the notebook by accident. I wasn't searching through Lily's room. I had gone in to fix the window. It never closed properly, and rain was expected that evening. Her room was empty. She was at university. Emily was grocery shopping. I was alone. The notebook slid off her desk when I moved a stack of books. It landed on the floor, opening somewhere in the middle. I bent down to pick it up. I wasn't trying to read it, but one sentence caught my eye before I could close it. "If I'm not extraordinary, I'm invisible." I froze. For a long moment, I simply stared at those words. Then I looked away. I shouldn't have read any further. It was private. I knew that. But something in those 7 words didn't sound like my daughter. Slowly, almost against my own conscience, my eyes drifted to the next paragraph. Pretty girls get noticed. Rich girls get respected. Beautiful women marry successful men. Ordinary women become invisible. Every sentence was written in different colored ink. Some had stars beside them. Others were underlined 3 or 4 times. At first, I assumed these were her own thoughts. Then I noticed quotation marks. They weren't her words. She had copied them from someone else. Page after page, there were more. A woman's youth is her greatest asset. Never build with a man. Become the prize. Love is emotional. Marriage is business. Some sentences had little notes written beside them. Remember this. She's right. Must improve. It looked less like a diary and more like lecture notes. My chest tightened. This wasn't random social media anymore. Someone had systematically taught my daughter how to think. I carefully closed the notebook and placed it exactly where I'd found it. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about those pages. At dinner, Lily barely touched her food. She was staring at her phone again. Her thumb moved almost automatically. Scroll, pause, like, scroll, pause, like. Emily finally smiled and asked, "What are you watching?" Lily turned the screen toward us. It was another young woman. Elegant dress, luxury apartment. A man handed her a velvet jewelry box while romantic music played in the background. The caption read, "He proposed after only 8 months because I knew my worth." Emily watched for a few seconds. "Do you know these people?" "No." "So, how do you know they're happy?" Lily looked genuinely confused. "They obviously are." "Why?" She pointed at the screen. "Look at their life." Emily asked softly, "Do you think people only post the bad days online?" Lily laughed. "Nobody would do that." Emily smiled sadly. "I would." Lily frowned. "Why?" "Because real life has bad days." For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Lily quietly picked up her plate and carried it to the sink. "I have studying to do." After she disappeared upstairs, Emily whispered, "She isn't even arguing anymore." "I know. That's what scares me." So did I, because people stop arguing when they believe they've already found the truth. Later that night, I remembered something I'd completely forgotten. About 8 months earlier, Lily had asked me for €500. She'd told me it was for an online course about personal branding and content creation. I hadn't questioned it. She'd always been responsible with money. In fact, I'd been proud of her for investing in herself. Now I wasn't so sure. I opened my online banking app. The transfer was still there. €500, same date, same amount. I copied the company name into a search engine. The first results looked professional. Beautiful website, professional photographs, testimonials, success stories. Then I searched a little deeper, past the advertisements, past the sponsored articles, and suddenly, the reviews changed completely. Scam, brainwashing vulnerable young women, promises luxury, delivers pre-recorded videos. No refunds. Avoid at all costs. I kept reading. One review stood out. "My daughter stopped speaking to her family after joining this program. She became obsessed with finding a wealthy husband and dropped out of university." Another. "They teach girls that self-worth comes from attracting rich men." Another. "Everything is designed to make women feel inadequate, so they'll keep buying more courses." My hands actually started shaking. It wasn't just Lily. There were hundreds of girls, maybe thousands, all being sold exactly the same dream, and every one of them believed they had discovered some secret that the rest of the world didn't understand. For the first time, I stopped being angry with my daughter. Instead, I became angry with the people making money from her insecurities. But I still didn't know how deep this had gone. The answer came 2 nights later, when Lily finally admitted where she'd really been spending her weekends. And the truth was far worse than anything I'd imagined. It happened on a Friday evening. Lily came downstairs wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. Elegant, simple, far too formal for a university student grabbing dinner with friends. Emily looked up from the living room. "You look beautiful." "Thanks. Big plans?" Lily smiled. "Just dinner." "With Ava?" She hesitated. "No." "A study group?" "No." I looked at her. "So, who are you meeting?" She picked up her purse. "Someone." Emily laughed softly. "That's mysterious." Lily forced a smile. "You wouldn't know him." I noticed she wasn't wearing the bracelet I'd bought her for her 18th birthday. Instead, she wore a thin gold bracelet with a tiny diamond. Definitely real. Definitely expensive. As she reached for her coat, I asked the question that had been bothering me for weeks. "Did someone buy that for you?" She stopped. Just for a second, then nodded. "Yes." "Who?" "A friend." "A man?" Another pause. "Yes." "How old is he?" She looked directly at me. "Does it matter?" I answered honestly. "To me?" "Yes." She sighed. 38. Emily's smile disappeared. "Lily, he's kind. How long have you known him?" "A few weeks." "And he's already buying you jewelry?" She crossed her arms. "Why does everyone act like that's a bad thing?" "No one said it was." "You don't have to." "You think I'm stupid." I stood up. "I think you're 20 years old. And I think someone almost twice your age buying you expensive gifts deserves a conversation." She looked irritated. He's successful. There it was again. Not funny, not intelligent, not respectful, not caring. Successful. That was always the first thing she mentioned. I asked quietly, "What do you actually know about him?" She blinked. "What? What makes him laugh?" Silence. "What's his favorite movie?" Nothing. "What music does he listen to?" She looked away. "I don't know." "What was his childhood like?" "I've never asked." I nodded slowly. "So what do you know?" She answered almost automatically. "He owns 3 companies. He has a house in Switzerland. He flies private. He invests in startups. He knows important people." I waited. She stopped speaking. Finally, I asked, "And who is he?" For the first time, she couldn't answer. The room became painfully quiet. Emily gently reached for her hand. "Honey, you deserve to know someone before you admire their lifestyle." Lily pulled her hand away. "You just don't understand." "What don't we understand?" She looked at both of us. "The world doesn't work the way you think anymore." That sentence hit harder than anything she'd said before, because she genuinely believed it. To her, Emily and I were simply outdated, naive, ordinary. People who had accepted average lives because we'd never learned the rules successful people lived by. She left before either of us could answer. The front door closed. The house became silent. Emily sat down slowly. "I don't think she's going to dinner." Neither did I. For reasons I still can't explain, I grabbed my car keys. Emily looked at me. "Michael, I'm not going to embarrass her." "What are you doing?" "I just want to make sure she's safe." I kept nearly half a mile between our cars. She never noticed me. She drove straight downtown, past the restaurants, past the shopping district, past the university. Finally, she pulled into the valet entrance of the most expensive hotel in the city. Not because she was staying there, because someone was waiting for her. I watched from across the street. A silver Bentley rolled to the entrance. A man stepped out, tall, well-dressed, probably late 30s. He smiled as Lily walked toward him. Then, instead of shaking her hand, he adjusted a loose strand of her hair, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Lily smiled, not because she looked happy, because she looked relieved, as if she'd just passed some invisible test. I don't know why, but at that exact moment, I had the overwhelming feeling that my daughter wasn't falling in love. She was auditioning for a role, and she didn't even realize someone else had already written the script. I didn't follow them inside. For several minutes, I sat across the street with my hands gripping the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to march into that hotel, take Lily home, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But she wasn't 16 anymore. She was an adult. If I embarrassed her now, I might lose her completely. So I drove home. When she returned a little after midnight, she looked happier than she had in months. She walked through the front door carrying a small white shopping bag. Emily was still awake. "How was dinner?" Lily smiled. "It was amazing." "What did you eat?" She laughed. "I don't even know how to pronounce half the dishes." Emily smiled. "And your friend?" "He's different." "Different how?" "He listens." That answer surprised me. It sounded genuine, not rehearsed, not copied from social media. Real. Maybe I judged him too quickly. Over the next few weeks, Adrian became part of Lily's life. He never came inside our house, never acted disrespectfully. Whenever he picked her up, he walked to the front door, shook my hand, called me Mr. Carter. He remembered Emily's birthday after meeting her only once. He sent flowers when she caught the flu. Everything about him seemed perfect, almost too perfect. One Sunday afternoon, he invited all 3 of us to lunch. "I'd like to get to know Lily's family," he said. I almost declined. Instead, Emily squeezed my hand under the table. "If we say no," she whispered, "she'll only spend more time with him alone." She was right. The restaurant overlooked the harbor. Quiet, elegant, the kind of place where nobody looked at prices on the menu. Adrian stood as we arrived. He greeted Emily warmly, asked about her work, complimented the restaurant staff by name. Within 20 minutes, I understood why people trusted him so easily. He knew exactly what to say, exactly when to smile, exactly when to stay quiet. He made everyone feel interesting, even me. At one point, he turned toward Lily. "You've lost weight." She smiled immediately. "I've been trying." I noticed. "And how did you respond?" A tiny smile appeared. I told him maybe emotions aren't weaknesses. Maybe they're what stop us from becoming someone we're not. For the first time in almost a year, I heard my daughter again. Not the influencer, not the algorithm, not Adrian. Lily. The following week, she deleted the coaching program, canceled the subscription, archived hundreds of photos. Not because Emily or I demanded it, because she wanted to. Then something happened that made me realize she was truly healing. One Saturday morning, she walked into the garage. I was cleaning old boxes. She picked up the dusty cardboard box labeled Novel, age 16, her first manuscript. "I forgot this was here." I smiled. I didn't. She flipped through the pages. Some of them still had my handwritten notes in the margins. "Great chapter. This dialogue is brilliant. Keep writing." Tears filled her eyes. "I used to love this." "You still can." She looked at me. I stopped because I thought nobody cared. I shook my head. "No. You stopped because you started believing your value depended on impressing strangers." She didn't argue. She simply nodded. A year passed. Life wasn't magically perfect. Healing never works that way. Lily finished university. Not at the top of her class, but she finished. She found a job at a small publishing company. The salary wasn't impressive. The office wasn't glamorous. She called me after her first week, sounding happier than she'd sounded in years. "Dad, I think I actually like Mondays." I laughed. "That's a rare sentence." It surprised me, too. Then, on my birthday, she handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple wristwatch. Nothing luxurious, nothing designer, just a clean silver watch with a brown leather strap. She looked almost embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "It's not expensive." I fastened it around my wrist. "It's perfect." She frowned. "Really?" I smiled. "You know why I'll wear this every day?" She shook her head. "Because every time I look at it, I won't remember how much it cost. I'll remember who gave it to me." She started crying. Not the desperate, hopeless crying that had echoed through our house a year earlier. These tears were different. They came from relief, from letting go, from finally understanding something that had taken her almost 2 years to learn. Money can buy comfort. It can buy luxury. It can even buy attention. But it can never buy the one thing she'd been searching for all along, the feeling that she was already enough. And perhaps the strangest part of this whole story was that my daughter never really wanted a billionaire. She wanted certainty. She wanted to believe that if someone extraordinary chose her, then maybe she was extraordinary too. The day she stopped waiting for someone else to prove her worth was the day she finally became the person she'd been trying to find all along. Looking back now, I don't blame one man. I don't even blame one influencer. I blame a world that keeps telling young people they need to become someone else before they're worthy of love. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt like you weren't enough, I hope you learn the lesson my daughter learned much sooner. The people who truly love you will never ask you to earn your value, because to them, you already have it. Before you go, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think stories like this are becoming more common today? Have money, status, and social media changed the way people choose their partners? Or has it always been this way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read as many of them as I can, and I'm always interested to see different perspectives. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life family dramas, shocking betrayals, and unforgettable life lessons, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. You look much more elegant now. Emily's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I noticed. So did she. The compliment didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like an evaluation. Lily didn't seem to notice. She looked proud. As lunch continued, Adrian casually mentioned that he had canceled a business trip. "For Lily?" Emily asked. He smiled. "Some opportunities are more valuable than money." It sounded romantic. The table beside us actually smiled after overhearing him. Then came another sentence. "So, have you thought any more about taking a break from university?" Lily nodded. "A little." My heart skipped. "A break?" She looked at me. "Just for a year." Adrian answered before she could. "I simply think real-world experience can be more valuable than lectures." I kept my voice calm. Lily has always wanted to graduate. "Of course," he smiled politely. "I'm only encouraging her to keep an open mind." Nothing he said was technically wrong. That was what made him so difficult to challenge. Every sentence sounded reasonable, individually. Together, they slowly pointed Lily away from everything she'd once wanted. After lunch, Adrian excused himself to take a phone call. The moment he disappeared, Emily leaned toward Lily. "Are you happy?" Lily looked surprised. "Of course." Emily smiled softly. "Then why do you seem nervous every time he speaks?" Lily didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the window where Adrian was talking on the phone, watching him, waiting for him, almost checking whether she'd said the right thing. Emily noticed it too. When we drove home, she stared quietly out the passenger window. Finally, she spoke. "I've seen this before." "What do you mean?" "My aunt." I glanced at her. "You remember Uncle Robert?" I nodded. He never yelled. He never hit her. He never told her what she could or couldn't do. So, he simply convinced her that every decision was his idea. I stayed silent. Emily continued. One haircut, one dress, one friendship, one hobby, one little suggestion at a time. Until one day, she couldn't remember which opinions were actually hers. I felt a chill run through me, because suddenly, every conversation Lily had been having over the past month replayed in my mind. Maybe I should stop writing. Maybe university isn't that important. Maybe successful women don't work as much. Maybe... Every sentence had started with the same word, maybe. Not because she believed it, because someone had planted the thought. That evening, I walked past Lily's bedroom. The door was slightly open. She was sitting in front of her mirror, not putting on makeup, not brushing her hair, just staring at herself. After a full minute, she quietly picked up her phone, opened the front camera, compared her reflection to a photo of another woman, then sighed, and whispered something so softly I almost didn't hear it. "I'm still not enough." I stood frozen in the hallway, because for the first time, I realized my daughter wasn't chasing wealth anymore. She was chasing worth, and those are two completely different things. A few days later, I received a phone call I never expected. It wasn't from Lily. It wasn't from Adrian. It was from someone named Sarah. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "I don't think we've met." "We haven't. My name is Sarah Collins." There was a long pause. "I used to date Adrian." Every instinct in my body told me to hang up. Instead, I listened. "How did you get my number?" "I didn't. I found your email through your company's website. I wasn't sure if I should contact you. I've spent 3 days debating it." My heart began beating faster. "What is this about?" She hesitated. "I saw Lily." "Where?" "At the charity gala last weekend." "You know her?" "No, but I recognized the pattern." Those words made my stomach tighten. "What pattern?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Please don't misunderstand me. Adrian isn't violent. He isn't dangerous in the way people usually think. He's convincing." I didn't interrupt. "When we met, I was 22. He was 39. He told me I was different, smarter than other women. He encouraged my dreams. He supported everything. For a while." Her voice became quieter. Then the suggestions started. "You'd look beautiful with longer hair. You should stop working so hard. You don't need university anymore. My friends aren't a good influence. My parents worry too much." It all sounded caring. None of it sounded controlling. She laughed bitterly. "That's why nobody noticed." I slowly sat down in my office chair. What happened? I woke up one day and realized I hadn't made a single important decision by myself in almost 3 years. Silence filled the room. Then she said something that stayed with me forever. The hardest prisons aren't locked. They're decorated. After the call ended, I didn't know what to think, because everything Sarah described matched Lily almost perfectly. Except for one thing. I still didn't have proof, and accusing someone without proof could destroy my relationship with my daughter forever. That evening, Adrian came over to pick Lily up. As always, perfect suit, perfect smile, perfect manners. He shook my hand. "Good evening, Mr. Carter." I looked him directly in the eyes. "Can we talk for a minute?" He smiled. "Of course." We stepped onto the front porch. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, "What do you want from my daughter?" He didn't even blink. "I care about her." "That's not what I asked." He folded his hands calmly. "I think Lily is extraordinary." "So do I." "Then we're in agreement." His confidence was unsettling. I took another step closer. "Does she know you've dated women her age before?" He smiled politely. "I've dated adults." "That's not an answer." "Neither was your question." I realized something then. This man never argued. He redirected. Every single time. I tried again. "Have you encouraged her to leave university?" "I've encouraged her to think independently." "Have you suggested she spend less time with friends?" "I've suggested she surround herself with people who inspire her." "Have you told her to change the way she looks?" "I've complimented the changes she's chosen herself." Every answer was technically true. Every answer avoided responsibility. Then he looked directly at me. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When Lily was 16, did she dream about becoming a writer?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Yes." "And what did you tell her?" "I supported her." "Good. And when she wanted to publish her book?" "I supported that too." He smiled. "So we're actually very similar." "No, we're not. I support her dreams." He looked at me calmly. "So do I." I wanted to disagree. I wanted to tell him he was manipulating her. But in that moment, I couldn't, because I suddenly realized something terrifying. Adrian had never invented Lily's insecurity. He had simply found it. Someone else had planted it years earlier. Social media had watered it. Influencers had fed it. And Adrian had walked into a garden that was already growing. As he left with Lily that evening, I stood on the porch longer than usual. For the first time, I wasn't asking myself whether Adrian was the villain. I was asking a much harder question. If Adrian disappeared tomorrow, would Lily actually be free? Or would she simply find someone else to replace him? That was the moment I understood. This battle had never been about one man. It was about helping my daughter remember who she had been, before the world convinced her she wasn't enough. 3 days later, Lily knocked on my office door. She hadn't done that in weeks. "Dad, do you have a minute?" I closed my laptop. "Always." She walked in slowly and sat across from me. She looked exhausted, not from crying, from thinking. "I've been reading." I smiled. "That's good." She shook her head. "No. I've been reading the comments." "What comments?" "On one of my mentor's videos." She placed her phone on my desk. "Read them." At first, they looked familiar. Thousands of women praising the creator, calling her inspirational, life-changing. Then Lily scrolled further down, much further. To the comments almost nobody reads. One caught my eye. "I spent 4 years trying to become the kind of woman your course described. I lost my fiancé because he wasn't rich enough. Today, he's happily married with 2 children. I'm 34, completely burned out, and I don't even recognize myself anymore." Another. "I kept waiting for a millionaire. I forgot to actually live." Another. "Nobody tells you that if your entire self-worth depends on attracting rich people, you'll never feel valuable without them." Lily whispered, "I never saw these before." I looked at her. "What changed?" She smiled sadly. "I finally stopped looking only for comments that agreed with me." That sentence alone told me she was beginning to think for herself again. A few minutes later, she surprised me. "I broke up with Adrian." I stayed completely still. "You did?" She nodded. "He didn't yell. He didn't try to stop me. He just said, she swallowed, that I was making an emotional decision. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it sounded exactly like him.